So last time I was here, we were talking about the shadow, and this is the second sermon of 3. And what we're looking at is sort of the interior work that we need to do to sort of live the first principle really truly and effectively. In the first sermon, we talked about how the shadow is activated, how we talked about different sorts of emotions, anger that really is based on an environmental threat versus anger based on a story I'm telling myself. Guilt where I've broken agreement and now feel like I need to make amends versus guilt about something that may have happened a million years ago, something I didn't have any control over. So we talked about how our triggers are activated. Now, activation is sort of the first thing that happens, but what happens after that is projection. And this is really what happens is when I see somebody who shows me a piece of my own shadow, and suddenly I'm triggered. I see my own greediness. I see my own arrogance. I see my own negligence. And instead of looking inward, instead of going, okay, how is that person? I'm like, look at that person's arrogant, not me. That person's a know-it-all, not me. My favorite conversations with students are when two generally male students realize they're both know-it-alls and that they're activating their shadows, right? So when we talk about shadow projection, and this is where Bly's metaphor of the film projector comes in handy for us, it's about when I take a piece of myself and stick it on somebody, and it's mine. It's not really theirs at all. So the easiest way to see this is sort of what we're talking about here with our title. What we deny in ourselves, we accuse in each other. What I deny in myself, I'm going to accuse in you. And I don't need somebody, a bad person, to project on. That's what my spouse is for, and that's what I'm for her, because that's what spouses do. We project on each other constantly, right? This is what parents and kids do. We project on each other constantly. Whatever I can't consciously handle, I'm going to either repress it and push it out of awareness, push it into my shadow, or I'm going to project it onto somebody else. So what we deny, we accuse in others. So arrogance, selfishness, neediness. Suddenly, the problem's not inside me anymore. Suddenly, the problem's them. Suddenly, they're the problem. And this is generally a really unconscious process. We can feel it, though, like activation. Some people just set us off. They make us defensive. They make us insecure. Whoop, this is going to stay on here. They make us aggressive, and we're not always sure why. Who's somebody that gets under your skin without even really meaning to do anything? This is a person that's showing me a piece of myself that I need to be more aware of. So the other problem with projection is that now, once I've projected my shadow onto somebody, I can't see them clearly anymore. I can't see them accurately anymore. I'm seeing them through the lens of my own shadow. So now I'm not going to see this person clearly, and I'm probably going to be more aggressive towards them than they actually maybe deserve at all. So we see people, once I project my shadow onto somebody, I see them as worse than they actually are, because now they're carrying their arrogance and my arrogance, so I add something extra to them. And this gives me an excuse to be more irritated with them. So how do we see these things? People are mirrors to us. Now, it's true, sometimes people do things to us, and they've crossed a clear line, as we've talked about. How do I know I have the right to be truly angry? Well, if I'm upset with somebody, but I can't tell them what they've actually done to me, I don't really have much right. Well, they just talk too much. Well, they ask too many questions. They won't stop worrying, right? It's like that kind of thing. It's like, if I'm getting angry about that, that probably has more to do with me than them, right? And me projecting my stuff on them, my shadow on them, is just going to make it worse. So, again, people harm us directly, but there are a lot of people that aren't harming us at all, and we're getting a lot of static. We're generating this on our own. Someone just becomes unbearably arrogant. right? Someone just becomes someone you just can't be around at all. I mentioned this story the last time I was standing up here. I was walking on campus, and I saw one of my rivals. I'm like, oh, I hate that guy. Oh, I can't believe it. And he's just walking. He's thinking about something else. And so I'm doing this to myself. Again, the reason I'm so interested in this is that it helps me not have so much anger or fear. I just don't need any more than the world already serves up. So I try to keep that down. So again, sometimes we can see people functioning as mirrors. When we can't pin down what it is they're doing wrong, they might be showing us a piece of ourselves. And again, if I'm projecting my shadow on somebody, I'm clearly unable to see their inherent worth and dignity. Right? At this point, I just see them as a threat. They're an emotional threat to me. Again, we do this when we see something we don't like in somebody else. I work in a university and everyone's the smartest person in the world, and so I'm afraid. Okay, I'm not that arrogant, am I? I'm not as arrogant as that, am I? So I have this secret fear I might be as arrogant as my colleagues that sort of sits in the back of my personality. But then when I see somebody who doesn't care about not being arrogant, it just, oh my gosh, they're so arrogant, they're not even trying, right? That kind of thing. And that's when I have to go, okay, this isn't really about their arrogance, this is about your arrogance, and if you're afraid of being arrogant, then just be more humble then, right? We also project our own self-judgment. We think someone's judging us. They think I'm a flake. They think I'm incompetent. I went to a party with a friend of mine when we were in grad school, and when he walked out, he was like, I'm as smart as all those people. And I'm like, okay, good. I'm like, did somebody say you weren't? And he said, no, but they just think they're so smart. And I'm like, all right, maybe you're worried you're not so smart, right? So I've been doing this thing in the last couple, I guess a week or so. I've been reviewed by my peers, right? 5 years worth of teaching and research and service, and they're going to tell me if I've been doing a good job. And I'm putting all this stuff together, and I'm like, why is this guy's not as good a teacher as me. He's not qualified to review me, right? It's like, which is pride and defensiveness and the shadow. The shadow's like, they're going to say I'm a bad teacher, right? So pride and shadow, they're almost in a tug of war. Like if my pride's, because it's very easy to get behind pride, right? We feel righteous. How can these people do this? But behind it is a fear. So if I can connect the fear to the pride, it kind of breaks it when I saw that. And I role-played this entire discussion to my students, and one goes, oh, that's the pride talking, right? I'm like, that's exactly what it is, right? But I want to believe it. I want to believe my pride. If I can link it to my shadow, it starts to break. So our own inner criticisms will say they think this of me. Right? They don't like this about me. I was at a gathering of people, and one person I didn't feel like I really clicked with very well. So at the end of the session, I went up to her and I said, I don't feel like we got off on the right foot. And she looked at me and she goes, who are you again? I'm like, okay, I get it. Right? But that was better than, yeah, you're right, I don't like you. It's like, no, it was all in my mind. So we project our own self-judgment all the time. It's our own inner critic going outward instead of saying, okay, maybe I do need to tighten things up. Maybe I do need to be more reliable, but maybe I need to talk to people and ask them what they think instead of worrying about it all the time. My favorite example, but now I'm a little self-conscious talking about it, because I might get a text from my spouse saying, can you load the dishes? And I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll load them. But I mess around for like 45 minutes instead. So when she comes home and says, did you do the dishes? I'm like, yeah, I did them. Right, because I'm feeling defensive. So this is another type of projection. One is where the person mirrors something I really don't want to see about myself. Another one is where I project my own criticism on somebody else and accuse them of criticizing me when they're not. There's the toughest one. The toughest projection is when we have an unmet need. There's something we're afraid to do, and we see somebody else do it, and we hate them for it because they're not afraid to do it, and we are. Sometimes it can be a very deep thing. I had a student who, she was very leadership-oriented, very high-octane person. And one of the things she told me, she's like, I can't stand it when people complain. And I said, do you want to go into leadership and you don't want to hear any complaining? I'm like, this is going to be a steep road, right? And I said, well, what was that? Your parents didn't want you to complain? She's like, no. She's like, they never complained either. And I'm like, oh, okay, they never complained. I'm like, do you have a special needs sibling? She's like, yep. And I'm like, right. You don't complain. The parents don't complain. She doesn't complain because what's important is a special needs sibling. So if I could do this, and I don't have to complain, I don't want to hear you complaining either. Right? So she had to figure that out. I've had students that don't feel like they can make a mistake. I can't make a mistake. I'm like, have you ever heard your parents tell the story of the biggest, most horrifying mistake they've ever made? And they're like, no. And I'm like, go ask them then. Right? And tell them, it's like, I need to hear that you made mistakes too, because I don't feel like I can. So sometimes it's what people don't do, and then we just won't do it. Now, the easiest one to break is the student who has the lazy roommate, and they're just so irritated with their roommate, they just lay around all day, and they don't really do anything. And this is a student that can't relax. It's like, can you relax? No. It's like, okay, well, if you learn to relax, then you can look at your roommate and go, that's not a very good way to do that. There's a better way to do it, but I don't get frustrated. The real trick with this, if I'm projecting on somebody, if I can switch out compassion for irritation, I've won. If I can look at somebody who's rude and go, that must be hard to be that person. It must be difficult. People probably can't get close to that person. Somebody must have done something to make them that defensive. Like when I see someone who's like super, super, super critical, I'm like, oh, that person got criticized. Right? People get a shadow. You know, we're not born like this. We're given shame. If I change a diaper in front of everybody, the only person that won't care is the baby because they don't have any shame. Everyone else will be like, okay, now I'm uncomfortable. I know we're you, but there's a line, right? So if I can realize, though, what's the thing I need to do? What's the thing that I need to meet, the need? So, for example, someone who longs to be seen and heard might get really annoyed with a friend that needs a lot of attention, right? Because they need to speak up. I have, a lot of times what I tell my students is like, do you leave conversations with things unsaid? And they're like, yep. I'm like, that's why you get so irritated with somebody who can't stop talking, right? Can you learn to relax? Then you won't get so irritated with somebody who does. Or the real kicker, can you learn to say no? Can you learn to say no so that when somebody says no to you, you won't completely think they're selfish, right? Can I find my own way to meet my own needs? So again, you can tell you're projecting an unmet need because there's a mixture of disapproval. Your ego disapproves, but your shadow is longing for it. So there's an ambivalence. I want that, but I don't want it, right? But I can feel it. When I was teaching out at Georgia Southern a long time back, and this is like the early 90s, my friends who were also teachers and also rookie dads, such as myself, they had rigged up a bunch of computers and were going to play Doom after class. They're like, Steve, do you want to play Doom? Do you want to play Doom? I'm like, yes, I want to play Doom, but I have to go home and change diapers and like rescue my spouse, so she's not deep fried. And so I'm driving home going, Mark and John are lousy dads. They are crappy dads. I wish I could be playing Halo right now, right? So we do this sort of sour grapes thing. So a good question to ask yourself is like, who gets away with it? Who's getting away with something? And is it something I need to try and figure out how to do? So if we see this is the hardest projection to snap because we're afraid to meet this need. But if I can find my healthy way to relax, I can look at my dysfunctional roommate and go, yeah, they're relaxing, but that's not how I want to do it. But I won't get mad anymore. Why does all this matter? Again, the real win here is, can I turn irritation into compassion? Can I turn irritation with somebody or defensiveness with somebody into sympathy or understanding? Can I see, like, yeah, this person is a challenging person to be around, but there was a reason why they got here. And there's a reason and underneath the difficult things is still something beautiful. So it brings us back to the spiritual challenge at the center of the tradition. You know, our first principle asks us to affirm the inherent worth and dignity of everybody we meet. And projection completely destroys our ability to do that. We only see them as a caricature. We don't see them as a complicated human being. They become villains in stories that we're unconsciously writing and not an actual threat. So they become the arrogant one, the lazy one, the selfish one. Once we reduce someone down to a projection, their humanity completely disappears from view. And that's precisely why shadow work matters spiritually, so that I really am able to get past all of my own stuckness, right? All the ways that my humanity is still hidden from me. These folks that are challenging to us, they show us where our shame still lives. They show us where our fear is still operating and where our humanity isn't quite developed yet. So these are difficult people, but they bring us really important gifts. They bring us important insight if we can get past the emotional hijacking of the shadow being triggered. We can catch a shadow in the moment or catch a projection in the moment. We can catch ourselves doing this. This is what most of my classes are about, is like when the student goes, okay, I know why my mom asks a lot of questions. Now I know why certain things are difficult for her. I understand it at this point. So here's some helpful questions to ask. Next time you're around someone who's challenging, and you can't really pin down, they're not really doing anything to you, but they are setting you off. Some questions. What might this person be mirroring in me? What is some piece of myself I don't want to see that this person might be activating? If someone's arrogance irritates us, it might be time to ask, where is my arrogance? How is this like mine? If someone's neediness frustrates us, we might ask, when is it hard for me to admit that I need help? Right? One of the most difficult things for helpful people to do is ask for help. Right? So when I see somebody being like that, maybe I should say, okay, why am I angry with this person who's unafraid to seek support? Right? What am I afraid to seek support about? If someone's confidence is threatening, if someone's sort of a big spotlighter, what part of me fears claiming my own confidence, right? What's the fear that keeps me from doing this thing my way, not the way they're doing it, but the way that I want to do it? So these questions don't mean that the other person is always innocent of the trait we're perceiving. People that are arrogant and greedy and selfish, our shadow sticks to them. It's easy to stick our shadow to someone who's obviously greedy or obviously, boy, I just love this little mic so much. Okay. The technology is what sets my shadow off. What part of me fears stepping into my own power? What is it that they're not afraid to do? What's the fear that's keeping me? And can I push through that fear? Can I talk back to it? What part of my shadow's activated? I think it's important to talk back to ourselves. We listen to our emotions all day long. Oh, I didn't do that very well. Well, that could have went better. I don't think they like me. But we never talk back to them. They go, well, maybe they do like me. Maybe I should just go ask them. What is it about this person that set me off? We talk back to our shadow. They're not criticizing me. I had to tell myself over and over again, my peers are not out to persecute me, right? My peers are doing what they're supposed to do. We're supposed to evaluate each other. We get paid a lot of money. We have a lot of privilege teaching at a university. Everybody needs to be assessed at some point, no matter who they are, no matter what they do. So the humbleness comes back. It's just part of the process. I don't want to insult my colleagues by giving them bad data. I want them to do their job. As soon as I make it about the process and everybody else, whatever it is, my stories start to fade away now. And the shadow's not such a big thing. So again, when we recognize in our participation of projection, right? This person is legitimately annoying, and I'm making it worse by projecting my stuff onto them. When I realize I'm doing that, it softens my reaction. It's not so hard. It's not so fast. I take a breath. I ask myself, how's this interesting or educating for myself right now? What can I learn? Instead of seeing the other person as a caricature, we begin to see them as a complicated human being. They've got flaws, they've got strengths, they've got joys, they've got desires, they've got regrets, just like all of us. Then we start to see their humanity again. Reclaiming the mirror, in a strange way, the people who irritate us the most may often offer us unexpected gifts because they reveal pieces of ourselves we haven't integrated consciously yet. Again, they show us where shame lives, they show us where fear operates, and they show us where our humanity still needs some development. So here's our ongoing work. Shadow projection is a human tendency. It's what everybody does. And as soon as you get a new role or a new value, you get a shadow along with it. As soon as you get married, you get a spouse shadow. As soon as you get a job, you get a professional shadow. As soon as you become part of a spiritual community, you get a spiritual shadow, all the pieces you don't want to show, all the pieces we want to hide. It's part of being human. We don't outgrow it, but it always becomes something that we can manage and become conscious of. I can become more curious about my shadow, and in that way become more responsible about it. And when that happens, it's easier for me to see the dignity of different people, despite how challenging they might be. When we see clearly, we become less reactive. We become more compassionate. We become more capable of honoring the complexity of everybody. We become more capable of living the first principle. So for this week, the invitation is simple, it's easy, and hard. Notice the people who irritate you and ask, what are they mirroring back to me? What piece of myself am I seeing in their behavior? And see, even for a moment, if the mirror allows you not only to glimpse your own shadow, but also to see the enduring dignity of the person standing in front of you. Blessings be. Thank you.